understand that teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove.
A man who is enlightened is a man who is liberated. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. I am your guest host, Hero Daniels. Ebuka Obi-Uchendu sends his regards. It's been quite a tough week, so I'm going to start with some good news. The Emir of Bungundu that was abducted very recently has regained his freedom after 32 days in captivity. I think I'd like to use this opportunity to applaud the Nigerian police force and every stakeholder that made sure that his release was secured. In other news, in not so good news, Nigeria still remains the poverty capital of the world, as the United Nations has warned that 500,000 people from the northeastern region are at risk of starvation. As a young man that grew up in the slum, I can totally relate to poverty and starvation, and it's such a pity that in 2021, we're still here as a nation. And that leads me to our discourse for today. What are the solutions to Nigeria's poverty issues? To discuss this, I have a finance expert, Bola Olojede, and of course, youngpreneur CEO Remi Lekon-Bada. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Olojede. This is 2021.
Correct.
And for different dispensations, different administrations, there has always been developmental plans, poverty alleviation schemes, and we're still here. Where are we getting it wrong? I think we need to address the root cause of this issue. Where do you think we're getting it wrong?
Several things, actually. I would like to start with the data. Who says we are 200 million? How did you know? We don't really know how many people are living in Nigeria. If you take the MBS population numbers for Lagos, and the number that Lagos itself calls all the time when it's talking about its population, is about 10 million difference. Not to talk of peculiarities of having states in the north that are so much heavily populated than those in the south. So it seems as if, well, we're supposed to have census every 10 years. It's now been 14 years since we had one, and we've not had any since that time. Apart from that, the last one we had, and the one before it, were all built on politics, because population is one of those figures that determines how much is shared to you from Abuja. So there is always that political influence to want some numbers to be bigger than they actually are. So in reality, we don't know how many people live in Nigeria. So how do you begin to plan? How many secondary schools am I going to need in 5 years' time? How many students are going to be entering the university next year? All those planning information. How many healthcare institutions do I need to build? We don't know anything. So we're walking blind, we're shooting blind, and that is the fundamental where we need to start. We must have information. We don't have information.
Okay, so you're saying that one of the major causes of the state that we are in now as a nation is the fact that we don't have enough data that captures
no planning data.
The Nigerian people.
Yeah.
In effect, the government cannot plan appropriately and cater for.
It doesn't even know how many it's planning for.
Okay. Remi, how do you think we got here as a nation?
Just like he had earlier said, we don't have adequate data to rely on. But looking back again, the government policies that are being put in place on a yearly basis, how many are they really implementing? We have a large number of youths in the economy that we are not making use of. Daily, I encounter young guys, young people that have passion, that want to develop themselves, but the environment itself is not conducive. Is it the security we want to talk about? Is it the funding? There's no adequate skills for this youthful population to
try.
Yes. So it is quite, in the next few years, I don't know. That's why we see every day the youths are leaving the country because they are not allowed to develop their potential. They are not allowed to maximize, to take the economy to where it ought to be.
Okay, so we're going to speak about what the government has been doing so far. Because to be fair, there has been a lot of programs that has been set up. You know, in 2015, the National Social Investment Program, you talk about the trader money, the farmer money, and a whole lot of other programs. So we're going to speak about what the government is doing. Let's see how much effect that is having. But I think we need to take a step back now. When we say poverty, and I'm directing this question to you, Mr. Bolahon, when we say poverty, at what points does one realize that he or she is poor? What is that benchmark for poverty?
Well, there are several popular ways to measure poverty out there. The most popular one is people living below $1 on a daily basis. And $1 today, I don't know, what should we call it? Is it 413 or should we call it 550? I don't know which one. But let's just take an average of 500 naira. So how many Nigerians are living below 500 naira on a daily basis? That could be a definition of poverty. You could also look at bigger macroeconomic numbers and find the per capita basis of it. So if I take the annual budget of Nigeria, I can divide it by the number of people that we are budgeting for. And I have a per capita spend of the government on each citizen. You know, and that could also be a measure of whether that particular country, how rich or poor that country is. You can even the resources. For example, Nigeria lives in this wonderland where it says, "Oh, I'm a big oil-producing country." In reality, in terms of production, we're not even on the list of number 1 to 10 in the world. That is the first thing. On the second part is by the time you divide that number of barrels that were produced by the number of people, then we go way below. And we're not that country that we think we are, in the real sense of it. You know, so poverty is pervasive. You see it in how people are able to send their children to school. You see it in the healthcare sector, how people are able to take care of health. How, you know, things like 5,000 naira or 10,000 naira trader money or whatever might not work in an environment like ours because the cushions that are necessary to make those things effective are not there. So if you give, the thinking behind it is right.
Yeah.
A Bolly seller, for example, the entire capital may not be more than 10,000. But you see, if his child or her child should fall ill, the entire capital could just disappear. And that's it. So she goes back to poverty. Though you gave her 10,000 yesterday, but today the son fell ill, he had to go to the hospital, the entire 10,000 is gone. So you're not going to sustainably help that person because what is required structurally in the system is not there.
And if I'm going to ask a follow-up question, since you've already established the fact that some of these programs have not been working because of it's not really effective, you give a man food today, he goes hungry tomorrow, correct? Technically. What do you think that the government needs to do to actually put those, you made mention of structures. What are those structures you're referring to?
To not say everything did not work, I'm aware that there were a lot of loans that were pumped into certain sectors, maybe some SME businesses, some farming, agriculture especially. And there's some benefit to those spends. So it may not be right to say everything just went down the drain. However, some of the structural issues we need to begin to fix are things that, number one, bothers on the structure of the economy in itself. There's a lot of distortion in this economy. I don't have power, but I want to manufacture, or I want to do my small businesses, and that is where all my money goes to.
Yeah.
I traveled a couple of weeks ago. On my way back from Osun State, the road has failed in a couple of portions. There were 2 trailers that had entered the bush right there, and they were carrying goods. So someone has gone somewhere to carry some goods, but when will it reach destination? How long are they going to spend at that failed portion of the road? So the infrastructure basis is also not there. We need to begin to address that. Education, the ease of doing business. You want to talk about the Lagos port? It's a nightmare. The cost of doing business at our port makes things so difficult. Whether you are importing or you are exporting, you are in trouble. You don't run an economy that way. And the issue of double taxation is still not particularly resolved. It's just a cacophony of issues. Of course, bigger ones like insecurity is there. So I'm a farmer, even if I've collected money from government. I collected the money, then I couldn't enter my farm.
Because of insecurity.
What do you think is going to happen to that money I collected? I chopped the thing now. So when it comes to time to repay the money, I might not be able to meet my obligations because of insecurity. So it's a whole lot of things.
Remy, we're going to talk about unemployment now because Nigeria has quite a number of unemployed people, especially youth unemployment. I think youth unemployment is as high as 33%. So it's really, really terrible. Let's trace it back to the pandemic here. What do you think the effects, how strong was the effect of the pandemic, and how much did the pandemic contribute to our current state of unemployment?
For Nigeria, poverty has always been a lingering issue. So pandemic coming just blew it up for us. And then really, quite really, the youths really took over, they took over swiftly. Yet because we've had internet, we know what is happening in the Western world. So what we need to do is, okay, we strategize how we were reaching out to our customers. Everybody came online, started using the online media to sell their goods and services. Yes, a lot of youths really came up, but then it's still not enough. We have a lot of youths that really want to do more. There are a lot of government policies that is not allowing them to. Okay, let's say, coming back to the Twitter ban that happened recently, it's affecting a whole lot of businesses. And then if you look at the population of the people on the Twitter, they are the youths. They do their businesses daily. Now with the Twitter ban, we are losing. And a lot of them are losing businesses, they're losing clients. So eventually, it's going to fall back on the economy.
How has that affected your company?
Okay, for me, it was very okay for me because it was during the lockdown. I was able to build an online food business. I started an online food business. I started my coaching became more visible during that space of a time because I had a lot of people, youths I had to, okay, you are doing this business, these are strategies you need to put in place to help you more visible to grow your business right now because we are in the online world. This is where we are doing e-commerce. So it was very, very okay for me. But generally, people are just striving. It's not easy. It's not all sectors that were able to maneuver swiftly. And then, but really, the youths really tried, because if it was not for the youth, we won't be, the poverty level now would have been much more higher. Because really right now, people are suffering. People are suffering. The other day, I saw on my timelines, a whole lot of people were saying sardine is now 900 naira. Sardine that used to be as low as 300. even the rich man cannot afford to buy sardine now. So where are we going? So the poverty level is really hitting hard on people because if you go to the market today, it's not the same thing. And then the youths themselves are beginning to look for avenues to get out of the country. We are losing our youths to other countries because by the time they get out of the country, they go there to take up all sorts of jobs and they don't mind. But here in Nigeria, okay, let's say we need to educate our youth as well that entrepreneurship is very good, is very key. Because now, some years back, I had this young lady who wanted to go further education, but she had challenges. But she was a good fashion designer. Today, after mentoring her, today she's sewing clothes to people internationally. They pay her in dollars. Her story has changed. So the youth also need to come to understand that, yes, the white-collar jobs are no longer there. Entrepreneurship starts with the skills you have. But then the government also have to put policies in place that in the educational system, entrepreneurship should be taught in schools and in the curriculums right now. It will help the youth population.
Okay, well, to be fair, entrepreneurship is being taught in schools, at least at the university level. But if I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, you know, not everybody was born to be an entrepreneur.
Sure.
Some people just have a very regimented lifestyle. So what of the people that do not have that capacity, that internal core? Because, you know, I think it's so easy for us to glamorize entrepreneurship because it's not easy. Running a business in this country is not easy.
No, it's not.
Paying taxes is not easy.
It's not.
So if you own a business, which of course you do, I'm pretty sure you know that entrepreneurship is not as easy as it's made to look. As much as possible, as much as we're trying to also encourage the youth, we should also put it out there that it's not easy. We need as much help as possible.
Yes.
Mr. Remy, and that leads me to, Mr. Bolaho, that leads me to my next question, yeah? We are heavily dependent, even with the way the country is structured, most jobs are provided by the government, yeah? When you talk about, you made mention of allocation, yeah?
Correct.
From Abuja, they distribute money to different states. But for every economy that has gotten themselves out of that poverty state, talk about China, talk about most of these Asian countries, you see that there's this strong public-private sector partnership. How can the government encourage the private sector to create more jobs? Because apparently they can't do it alone.
No, they can't.
So, and most people are shying away from certain things just because of the ease of doing business is not there. So how can the government encourage the private sector so that we can create more jobs for people?
It's not supposed to be something complex, but we have made it unnecessarily complex around here. Unfortunately for us, the revenue of government is horrendous. It's very low, extremely low. The revenue of the federal government of Nigeria. To put it in perspective, the entire federal government budget is less than the education budget of South Africa. The entire thing. So add defense, add education, add health, everything together is less than the education budget of South Africa. That is how tiny budget is. Now, think about the fact that they say we are 200 million people. In South Africa, there are only 60 million people. So it should be glaring to us that one of the ways we can begin to make a dent on spending or fixing infrastructure, on doing all the things we wanted to do, is to court private capital and management. Private capital, money is there. Let me give you an example. Every time that you see the government come out to raise money, whether they're issuing treasury bills or they're doing bonds, you see 200% oversubscription. So anytime government comes out to say, please give me 50 naira, the market will give 100 naira. So take 100 naira. That shows that there's money somewhere there out. So we must be able to court these people, to bring them into the fold and use the capital as well as their managerial efficiency. The private sector is known to be more efficient at running businesses and enterprises. As a matter of fact, you can hardly point at any government enterprises that makes money. All they do is receive money from government, and at the end of the day, they can't even account for some of these things. So we need to bring them in. There are all forms of PPP structures that you can bring them under outright concession. You have from the outright concession to your privatization. You can sell certain things entirely to them. Some things you can give it to them and say, run it for this number of years and bring it back to me. And,
okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much on that note. This is where the session comes to an end. In fact, there's so much to talk about. We haven't even talked about how we can empower other sectors apart from the oil sector, you know, to make sure that we create more jobs. But thank you so much for coming. Rubbin Mind continues after this break. Stay with us.
Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove.
Welcome back. This is Rubbin Mind. Before we went on the break, we were talking about Nigeria's poverty state and how we can take this nation from a state of poverty to a state of abundance. Thank you so much to my last guest for coming through. Right now, I want to talk about the food crisis in the nation. My last guest made a statement. She said that, sardine is now 900 naira in the market. So literally, instead of flaunting watts of cash to your neighbors to show them you're rich, you can just show them your pack of sardines, and they will definitely know that you're rich. It's really saddening because in a country that is blessed with a lot of land mass, we should be producing more than enough food for ourselves, and not just for ourselves, to also export to other nations. Joining me today to discuss ending hunger and making food available for all is the founder of A Father Boy, Mr. Toby Fletcher. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining me via Zoom is an agriculturist and development consultant, Shola Kolawale. Hello, sir.
Thank you for having me once again.
Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with you, Shola.
Yeah.
Why are we here with the current food shortages in the country? Farmers are producing food. Sometimes the food don't get to the destination. Sometimes the food gets spoiled. What exactly is the problem? Why are we having an incremental hike in the prices of foodstuffs?
Yeah, thank you very much. Why we are here is not what we can actually all, say something about. But fundamentally, over the years, we've not done well in terms of investment in agriculture. And when I say that with all sense of responsibility, given the fact that if you look at our agricultural budget in the last 10 years, we've not been able to meet up with the mark as agreed upon by the African Union leaders at Maputo and then Malabo. When we have conversations like this, we refer to the Malabo agreement that we should make 10% of our budget, at least 10% of our budget available for agriculture. Over the years, we've not been able to do that. And even right now, we are below the 5% in terms of budget to agriculture. Now, but that aside, over the last few years also, we've seen how insecurity has largely affected agricultural production, and insecurity from two major perspectives: from the perspective of insurgency, and then the aspect of the farmer herders clashes that we have all across agrarian communities, in particular in the country. So no doubt about that, we've had the challenge of insufficient budget to that sector, the aspect of insecurity, and then we should not also discountenance the debilitating effect of climate change, which has also resulted in poor food production that has affected our system, our food production system heavily. And so when you see these spikes and this instability in the food production system, these are direct factors that are responsible for what we are going through right now. So it is not difficult to actually place a mark on the major things that are causing the inflation in prices of food, and even in some areas, scarcity. And then even across some belts now, we have the challenges of, infrastructure to bring food out of those regions is becoming difficult as a result of collapse of the road system.
Okay, so we'll talk more about those challenges. Mr. Tobin, one of the complaints most farmers have is multiple taxation across all levels of the government. So you pay tax, you have to pay taxes, federal government, state government, even the local governments also tax those food items. Do you think it's a major reason why we've seen this hike?
Oh, well, it's one of the reasons actually. Yeah, you just mentioned 3 taxes. There are still a lot of there's a lot of things people go through on the ground, and everything that all those things would reflect on the food. They don't want to waste, they don't want to lose money too. So everything still boils down on they sum it all up and add it to the basket of tomato and all that. And there's no body that regulates prices. You go to the market today and they are telling you a basket of tomato is 18,000. You go tomorrow, you see it for 21,000, and you can't find any tangible reason for that. They can tell you there was fight on the way, Boko Haram, this, that, you know. Now, the people just, you know, they just know how to twist the stories and, you know, just make things happen their own way. So, you know, like I say, if you want to go into any business in Nigeria, let's say you want to be a farmer, for example, it's very hard for you to get the A's and Z's of the process. You can't just go somewhere and ask them, how do I start this? They'll only put you through A to D. You start and you find out that something is coming up. Who is this one? What's happening here? And all that, you know. And those are the things killing the farming business, really.
Okay, so now I'm going to refer to a statement by the president,
Yes,
President Muhammadu Buhari. He blamed this hike and the scarcity of food on the farmers or the people that hoard these items. So can you throw more lights into this?
You see, it's possible. There's a big possibility on it, but that's not entirely what the problem is. And, you know, aside from the hoarding of foods, our palate has been adjusted a lot to what we import, the foreign food. For example, ofada rice. A lot of Nigerians don't even eat ofada rice. They prefer basmati rice. And when the borders were shut, it was very hard for them to adjust their palates to our local rice. And, you know, talking about the hoarding that you just mentioned, these farmers, they plant, they harvest, the transportation, you know, a lot of these places that a lot of these farmers are where the land mass is, a lot is going on there. There's insurgency, there's, you know, kidnapping, there's a lot. So these guys are even doing all this with their life in their mouth. You know, they're just trying to be strategic about it. So it's not entirely true to me that is the hoarding, is the middleman, like they would say. It's just the whole process, infrastructure. Coming, I know, you know, sometimes you buy tomatoes, you buy perishables from the market. They are looking fantastic in the market. Just within the market and your house, that's like 30 minutes, the tomatoes would have gotten rotten. I don't know how that happens. And, you know, you just look at all that, you know that is the fertilizer or how it's being planted and all that. So, you know, a lot of things are supposed to be done and go into these things, basically, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a question right after I reach out to Shola right now. Okay. But yeah, let's just hold that thought because you made a statement about how Nigerians find it hard to adjust their palates. So they prefer imported foods as opposed to the ones that are locally produced. So just hold on to that. Mr. Shola? So, okay. I think I'll just follow up with you, pending when we reach Shola. Are you saying that the locally made food is much more cheaper? Because even ofada rice is still expensive.
Yeah, okay. So now the attention has been drawn to our locally made food. When the borders were shut, you know, we had to make do of what we have. And, you know, a lot of attention has not been put on these things. And, you know, like I say, farmers, rice farmers, for example, these guys grow rice. A lot of them do the destoning with their hands. You can't cater for a country of 300 million people and still do things practically traditionally. There's a lot of mechanization that goes into these things. And if we don't pump money and we don't put money into these things, we're still just going to gallivant and make the meals available just to the little community that we're planting. So, you know, there's a lot of attention has to be drawn and has to go into this thing so that, you know, we can do more. You can't compare ofada rice, for example, to basmati rice or to the imported rice. Basmati rice that you're eating, apart from the nutritional values, the imported rice will be first harvested, stored, rebagged, transported from the country. It takes a minimum of 3-4 years for them to get to Nigeria. And you can imagine, that means you're just filling your tummy. Those things are even dangerous to the health. So, you know, if we can pay attention on what we have and develop these things, make these things global, make it stand, make it stay, make us really traditional, let us celebrate what we have, I think we'll do better as a people.
And I think this government is actually investing more in agriculture.
They're doing fantastic.
They
work.
have,
Yeah.
because I think agriculture contributed about 22% to the GDP,
Yeah.
as opposed to the
And that's
lower
the first time
percentages.
that's happening.
So it hits a level that it hasn't been in years.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Shola, so
Yeah, can I?
tell us, how can we consolidate on the current efforts of this government in boosting agriculture?
Yeah, if you look at what the government have been able to do, they've done more on the side of interventions in the sector, especially using the CBN to trigger production in specific, regarding specific commodities. We have the Anchor Bora programs that covers maize production, rice, and sorghum. We've also seen some other interventions to the big boys in the sector, who are millers and the likes. But I think one other area where we need to really work on is to have a formidable extension system that reaches out to smallholders who produce almost about 90% of the food that we consume locally. And I'm saying that from the height of the knowledge of the fact that we are not really doing much to get these people to produce more and then, feed it into the system. Yes, government interventions, but we need to have structures beyond interventions that will make food production sustainable. Because we are going into an era where we really need to begin to think of climate smart agriculture. Don't forget, I mentioned earlier that climate change is also going to bite hard. It's already biting hard and is also responsible for some of the challenges we are seeing in our production pattern. It will affect rainfall. It will affect relative humidity in some areas. It will come in form of pest infestation and pre and post-harvest losses in some locations. So what I'm saying in essence is that government must begin to rev up its extension service system in such a way that we are able to quickly mitigate challenges that we'll begin to see as we go further. Yeah. Now, if you observe very well, you will see that we are more dependent on rain to produce our food. Our agriculture is rain dependent. So we need to begin to move from that so that we can begin to have food production all year round and in a sustainable manner.
Okay, thank you very much. Toby, we've highlighted a lot of the issues that are causing these food shortages. And what do you think at this point in time, how can the government salvage this situation? Because you made mention that there's no regulatory body that is in charge of fixing these prices. So what do you think we need to do as a matter of urgency? Because it's not just about talking about these problems. We need to find solutions to it.
Okay, there's a lot of things to be done. A lot to be done actually. But you have to take one step at a time. A lot of these farmers, the ones producing, like he said, 80 to 90% of the meals that we eat are smaller farmers. The people that buy from beets and they bring them here to the south and they distribute everywhere. I think a lot of times the government needs to speak the languages these people understand. The funding that these people are supposed to get most times doesn't even get to them because these guys don't even speak English. They're just there doing that. All they do is farming. So I think there are ways that we can engage these people, and I'm sure they'll produce more because they don't even live where they farm. That's their life. That's the entirety of their life. So I think we need to engage these people more, and there has to be some sort of regulation. Sometimes you buy some tomatoes and you put it on the table, it can be there for 2 weeks and it's looking at you fine. But you buy some sometimes and it's rotten. It rottens in less than 2 hours. You know, it messes up. So, you know, when there's a regulatory body that you just don't sell scat anyhow. When there's a body that buys from you and, you know, checks the standard and tells you, oh, these things that you guys have done is not acceptable, can't go into the market, then a lot of these guys will start to sit up.
Quality control is very, very
Very,
important.
very key.
All right, I think we're going, well, but we literally have just a few minutes to the end of the show, so I'm just going to connect with Shola so he would give us his final words and final thoughts on this matter.
Well, yesterday was World Food Day, and then it was an opportunity to remind ourselves again as custodians of the food system that we have to produce responsibly, and we also need to begin to look at how we produce our food. Toby just mentioned now about rotten tomatoes and, you know, the issue of quality control. It's a function of the decisions that we take in terms of even regulating the kinds of inputs that we make into agriculture. I'm talking about the fertilizer, herbicides, the pesticides we use, and the likes. You will observe that over the years, in the last few years in particular, we have an influx of toxic agricultural chemicals coming into this country unregulated. The ECOWAS has a protocol for such chemicals, but Nigeria is not looking at that protocol. They are dumping a lot of terrible chemicals on our grounds, and it's going into our food system. So that is responsible for what Toby has just noticed. And then we need to address that even as we go forward in our attempt to be sufficient in food production and also to produce food sustainably on the long run.
Thank you so much, Shola. I appreciate this.
Yeah.
Toby, final words?
They say charity begins at home. We need to, I'm very local when it comes to Nigerian food. I've done that for the past 12 years. We need to continue to eat local, you know, so that we can grow as a country. We need to promote our culture. We need to promote our food. It's very, very necessary. And that's it basically. And I know that we'll get there. I tell people, ofada rice to me, that's my best friend. And you know, if we continue to promote what we have, I know that the world would be nothing to us. Thank you.
Fantastic. So in 20 seconds, please just let us know, how can we make our locally produced food to go global? For example, the pasta in Italy, everybody eats pasta. So how do we get ofada rice to be a global food?
So one of the
20 seconds.
Yeah, one of the things I've done in the past, I've done consecutively for like 3 years, is to celebrate ofada rice. You know, there's a festival called the Ofada Rice Day Festival in partnership with the Lagos State government. The idea is to just celebrate ofada rice, because when it's an internet world now, the foreigners they like to explore. The Europeans like to see what's happening, and you know, when we celebrate our food, when we celebrate our culture, people key into it and they want to hear. We are the most populous black nation.
Sure.
We should dictate a lot of things in some regards, like our own rice and our own food should be known as should carry the African slogan wherever it's going. And you know, that's what we've been doing for years, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Thank you so much, Toby, for coming. Thank you, Shola, for connecting with us. You've heard it from Toby. We need to leverage technology to make sure that our ofada rice, and not just ofada rice, all our locally made foods go global. Let's wear Nigeria. Let's eat Nigeria at all times. Rubbin Mind continues after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. It is now time for some entertainment. You know that we all need a good laugh every now and then, considering everything that is happening around us. And it's so amazing to see that content creation is now such a huge market. A lot of jobs are being created just from content creation. Joining me in the studio, not in the studio, from Abuja studio, is a stand-up comedian. He's also an actor on a very popular TV series, My Flatmates, is Dan the Humorous. How are you, sir? How are you?
How are you, Hiroyi?
that is Dan's slogan. So if you're confused right now, just know that I'm not breaking character, all right? That's how he sounds. How are you? That's his slogan. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you for having me here.
It's good to have you. So let's dive straight into it. We now live in a world where everybody has mobile phones. You know, there's this internet culture. We're watching from comedy skits to stand-up comedy clips. Uh, can you just tell us how lucrative this content creation business is?
Oh, it's very, very lucrative indeed. I mean, when you look at the evolution of the art from, the medieval days and the archival days to the past centuries to the 60s, 70s, and thereabout, it has moved from one point to the other. And the beautiful thing about this generation that we're in now is the fact that let me use the word for lack of a better one, your blowing doesn't have to be location based, So you don't have to go work for a particular network. You don't have to be part of a certain production. Unlike before, you don't have to be necessarily part of maybe a theater troupe or a comedy group that goes on tour or something like that. You can, from the convenience and comfort of your home with your, smartphone with a good camera, and then, put up some nice content, put it up on the various social media platforms. And as long as they are good content, they provide the right entertainment or the right education, depending on the audience that it intends to get to, it goes viral, it spreads within the relevant network and even much more. And that brings you to a point of relevance and value. So it's indeed a blessing to this generation, I must say, because, I mean, imagine as an actor in the days of Habat Ogunde, how it could have taken you several auditions before you were part of the theater troupe, or even the beginning of Nollywood, so how people would have gone through several auditions and everything to, make it. But now you see somebody comes up with a skit and, it does so well. And then before you know what's happening, that person gains the attention of movie producers or, TV show producers and the like. So it's a blessing indeed to this generation.
I agree with you totally. Just a follow-up question. So can you tell us how it has contributed to the Nigerian economy? Because sometimes I feel like entertainment is not rated as much as it should as a major contributor. So can you just enlighten us on how much, not just comedy, content generally has contributed to the GDP of this country?
Oh, well, I am sure I may not be furnished necessarily with the exact numbers when it comes to Naira and Kobo, but when you look at the human resources involved, when you look at the persons and the personnel involved, it tells you how much people or labor or how much persons have been taken out of the job market, out of the labor market, if they didn't have access, to the internet. Now, look at all the various guys out there. Look at the Macaronis, the Livelies, the Shaggies, the Nasty Blacks, and all of them. If there was no social media space or internet space, or Mark Angel, to mention, not even to mention, but to mention a lot, what would have been their place in the entertainment industry? And don't forget that for every one talent that you see out here, like you see Dan the Humorous out here, there's probably a staff strength of about maybe 3, 4, 5 and more persons involved. So imagine if that one person didn't have that opportunity, what would have been the opportunities open to all those other 2, 3, 4, 5 persons that are, connected to them. You understand what I'm saying? So
let's take it up from there.
The fact that it has taken a number of people involved, in the system and in the game goes to show you that these people are earning money, these people are paying taxes, these people are spending money, they are paying their bills. So naturally, the economy is being oiled, to a reasonable extent by these persons. So it has contributed immensely, to the development of the Nigerian economy.
Okay, so I'm going to pick it up from a statement you made. You mentioned some very viral internet stars, Brother Shaggy, Nasty Black. There's been an ongoing conversation. I think even a couple of weeks back, it was a major conversation about the OGs before IG versus the new guys, the newbies. And for clarity's sake, when I say OG before IGs, we're talking about the people, that had the platform before the internet before online skits became a thing. So can you just, how do we marry the situation? Because In fact, first of all, let's go deep into the matter. Do you think there are certain people that feel like youngsters have it easy because of the internet now?
Yeah, I very much agree with that, that youngsters have it easy because of the internet now. And, like I said, probably in my opening statement, that is a blessing to this generation, is a blessing to our time. We are not complaining, or these kids are not complaining, because I think I'm one of the the last breed of the OGs, so to speak, So the person who made that post actually had a valid point. And the point he made, like I also said in my opening statement, what would have been the fate of, actors when we had only one television network in Nigeria? What would have been the fate of, aspiring theater people when we had only the likes of one traveling theater in Nigeria? You understand what I'm saying? But now we come to a point where, courtesy of the internet, there are more options, there are wider options. So what would have taken you probably a number of months, a couple of auditions, a couple of trying to go to certain offices to beg for opportunity, took you only a few minutes and a few megabytes or gigabytes on your phone data to go up on the internet, and you are everywhere. So that post was not actually downplaying on the skills and talents of the newbies, as we want to put them, but to show that, look, these OGs, as it were, they went through the hard stuff. They went through the rough patch. It's just like you warm your food with fire, and another person is warming their food with microwave. Or now you have things like air fryer. You have machines that are called rice cooker.
Okay.
So compared to the people who boiled rice with firewood, and the people who have rice cooker that is electronically plugged.
Okay.
At the end of the day, we all have boiled
now.
rice together, but the process, is a bit different.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You've made your points. The OGs before IGs, you're hardworking. And of course, because of the internet, the newbies, you're also not less hardworking. I think we're all good now, right, Dan?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you have a show in Abuja on Tuesday. So good luck with that show.
Absolutely.
All right. Transcorp Hilton Hotel. I think I'll end it here before you pay for an advert. Yes, I'll just end it here.
Yeah, but there will be a lot of OGs and newbies.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Dan the Humorous. And good luck with your show on Tuesday.
Appreciate, hero. Appreciate.
All right. It's been an amazing time on Rubbin Minds. We've had very amazing guests, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one that have had fun with the show. I'll catch you next week, same time, same station. But before I leave you, remember, your best days are ahead of you and not behind. Bye.
Say, hey, hey,